think everybody kind of got their second wind towards the end, which was good, but we were coasting there for a little while, but
I had to have a bag of jelly beans to keep me going.
Yeah, I
Okay.
saw you were eating something. I have walnuts here, so
Okay, directors.
I needed the sugar.
yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, directors, staff. Regional District Board meeting for Wednesday, September the 8th. I have confirmation of quorum. Call the meeting to order. The first item is the adoption of the public agenda.
Move adoption.
Lee,
Second.
Second.
Cornfield seconded. Any additions? Hearing none, I'll call question. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Under petitions and delegations, we have Sayward Children's Hub. Alison Boucher, Ann Fasnick, and Kim Tuners from the Sayward Children's Health Hub will make a presentation. So good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome,
Kim is
and
on
as
too.
per usual, our delegation has 10 minutes to present their delegation, so please go ahead.
Oh, you're cutting in and out. Okay, we have a PowerPoint to present. Can I bring that up, or
Yes, go ahead, please.
I'm not sure how to do it on.
Okay, staff will do it for you.
Okay, thank you. There we go. Okay. So my name is Alison Boucher. I'm presenting on behalf of the Sayward Children's Health Hub. I also have Kim Tuners here and our Health Hub navigator, Ann Vasnick. She is having issues with her internet, so I don't know if she's going to be able to speak or not. So the Children's Health Hub network is about 3 years old now. It is operated out of the Sayward Elementary School, and it was funded by the Children's Health Foundation, they provide until March of this year. They have now diverted their funding to other sources, so we are looking for some funding to continue on with the hub. The goal of the hub is to provide families with children aged 0 to 6 in the Sayward Valley access to support services. Most of them have services provided out of the Campbell River region. So previous to the hub, they had to travel to larger communities in order to access services for the children. But with the creation of the hub, we've been able to have providers meet with young community at the local level. Ann Vasnick has been our family navigator from the beginning. She advocates for the services in Sayward, connects families and services to one another, and coordinates health planning. The accessible services, it provides a local place of connection for families who can be isolated and vulnerable. So there actually is a room within the Sayward school set aside for the hub. There's toys, there's a kitchen in there, so it's become a meeting place for families. It's also, as I said, a place for service providers to meet with families and encourage collaboration between diverse service providers. We've also hosted information sessions in the past, and we've supported other early years programs within the community, such as Family Gyms, Strong Start, local library, so forth. You can move on now. So we've been trying to build community capacity with the hub. The Sayward Children's Hub has allowed local parents to gain confidence and to lead hub activities. So it's, as I say, it's been going on for 3 years now. We've really created a cohesive little community with the families. And that's Ann there holding a little guy. She is from the Sayward Valley, so she knows all the families, and she's been an invaluable. So we're very lucky to have her. She's a committed community member, very well known and involved in many areas of Sayward. She can probably name off the top of her head all the young families in the community. All right. So what we are seeking from you, as we said, the Children's Health Foundation of Vancouver Island has ceased funding. So we are looking for support to continue on with the services of the hub. We have some carried over funds from last year to restart now, but we are looking for new funding sources to continue to provide the hub navigation position and fund the program. We'd like support for local food programs, including a lunch program at the hub, and healthy meals bag drop-offs, which we did this past year with COVID. And typically the operating costs for the hub for 1 year about $25,000, but we are very flexible too. All right. And thank you for considering our request for financial support of the Sayward Children's Health Hub. Your support will allow continued support for the vulnerable families of Sayward. We're finding a lot of new families are coming to Sayward as well, so we would really like to continue on. Kim, do you have anything to add? Anything I missed?
I would just add too that that I think you're probably aware, as in lots of our rural remote communities, that we have lots of vulnerable families in Sayward, and we do have data from UBC through their Human Early Learning Partnership about child vulnerability rates being higher in these communities, and it's one reason we've really identified these needs for services and you know, health, transportation to larger centers, and barriers of food access, and those things really aggravate some of those vulnerabilities. So something like the hub has really been having a big impact on the community. And also wanting to add too that we are aware of the grant and aid and are looking at that and understand that that's available around February. So want to know that's on our radar as well.
Are there any questions or comments?
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Director Baker first from Sayward. Director Baker, you have anything to add?
I personally feel it's something that the SRD should consider. I think it's a valuable asset for the community, not just for the village, for the valley as well. So I would appreciate the support from the SRD on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'll go to questions. Director Evans.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. Good to see both of you, Allison and Kim. I'm just wondering in terms of funding, and thank you, this seems like a really important program for your community and one that you've really established a good base now. So rolling it out is a matter of just continuing to implement and fine tune what you're doing. You mentioned, I have two questions. You mentioned that there's a number of people coming into the community. Is the space you're currently in able to accommodate some growth within this program and the new families?
We haven't been able to operate within the school this past year due to COVID restrictions, but we are hoping to reopen soon. It is a full-size classroom. There's plenty of room for.
Okay, thank you. And as far as funding is concerned, are there any other sources of funding that you have available? You mentioned the potential of a grant and aid, but is this, if you could just maybe give a sense of what other funding sources you have?
We just applied for to help fund the program. We're always looking for new sources to apply for. So okay. Kind of an ongoing thing.
And final question, Chair, is just around volunteers. Is this a volunteer driven? I know you have your coordinator to coordinate activities, but is there a lot of parent and volunteer activity involved as well?
Generally, yes, there's a lot of support. Like we ran a once a week food program, you know, a drop-in lunch program. There was always when Ann is out in the community, say doing family events and so forth. She does get a lot of support as well.
Great. Well, good luck with your program. I'm looking forward to see how this moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lee.
My question is through the chair to staff. Given that, you know, grant and aid funds may be quite limited this time in the year, because some of us have spent quite large amounts already. We're getting towards the end of our fiscal year. Is it possible that the community, this is through the chair to staff, that the community health network would look at helping with funding some of this work because, you know, it was mentioned by Allison that kids are going to other communities for health follow-ups and counseling and that kind of thing. Seems to me that it would fall perfectly under the community health network to be given more substantial funding from that group rather than grants and aid.
Okay, I'll go to CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Community Health Network doesn't have a budget for anything other than staff. We're on a shared resourcing through a contract agreement with Island Health and the contributions of the Strathcona Regional District. So that just provides funding for our coordinator and some meeting expenses. So there's not really a vehicle for the health network to distribute funds. They don't have any. What they can be a good resource for, though, is linking with grant funding opportunities and programs. They're an excellent resource for that. And if it's a direct contribution through a grant and aid, that would likely come through the SRD, and whether it comes from a regional or an electoral area, that would be up to the board or committee.
Okay, thank you. And Director Cornfield.
Thank you, Chair. And good to see you again, Allison. Hope the family's doing well. And I guess I'd like to talk a little bit about food security issues. I always get concerned, especially when it comes to little ones, that they have sufficient food on their table, and that, yeah. Anyway, to me, that's an important issue, and I think it's something that should be dealt with from in a regional perspective. Have you pursued other funding opportunities into the food security measure? And I can see Kim nodding her head, so maybe she would like to answer, but.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So I didn't introduce myself too. I'm a public health dietitian with Island Health. So I am involved in the health network. So we've been supporting funding applications, and then there is some food security funding that we've been looking at. It's coming gradually. We've had more funding opportunities with COVID. So I hope we'll have some more specifically that can go to the hub to support food security. It has been one area that I think has a bit more funding available. So those food programs are kind of a nice piece. It doesn't overall support the overall operation of the hub. So we still need that more of that core funding. But yeah, the food piece, I am hopeful we're going to keep being able to build that and find some funding.
Okay, I think that's a key issue. And it may not be a total solution, but generally speaking, grants don't usually solve the whole problem.
Yep.
But if you can get certain components fully funded through grants, then I think that's a good way to go. So it was more, I see that as being part of a bigger regional issue. I'm just not sure how it would fit in with our current structure that we have, like the community health network or other regional approaches to things like housing and that. So yeah, anyway, thanks very much for your presentation. Good luck. I wish you all the best success. And I know it's tougher in a small community, but keep up the good work because it's needed.
Okay, thank you, Director Cornfield. And thank you very much for the presentation. Much appreciated.
I think Julie's got her hand up there, Chair.
Sorry, Director Colburn.
Hi there. I'm just curious. So originally you were funded by the Children's Health Foundation. Is that, are you still funded through that at this point?
No, they've diverted their funding to some other areas. I'm not exactly sure where they've moved it to. I think some was for the Her Way Home project and a few other things, but nothing that's directly impacting Seaward. Now they're Vancouver Island wide, so they've kind of moved to some other work.
And so further to that, then I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity. Oh, sorry about that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that they also funded a similar project through Gold River, and that funding was pulled as well. So yeah, it's they're
And that's what
found
I
other
was going to
priorities.
speak to. And so what I'm wondering is there an opportunity through these health hubs to do regional kind of funding projects? I'm just wondering, just trying to think out of the box. I know that these health hubs provide valuable support to families. I'm familiar with the one in Gold River. And so I'm just wondering if there is a way to do a regional kind of funding.
I'll go to staff for that.
Well, yeah, there is, or there could be. I mean, that's one of the things that, we continually talk about with the community health network and what that service would entail. There's a lot of things included in there: transportation, food security, homelessness, all kinds of things. But yes, it's absolutely something that the regional district could do through a community health service.
Okay, thank you.
And then further on to that, just if I could, the reason I'm asking is because maybe there is a way to put these health hubs that we do have in our region together in a kind of a pot that would hopefully assist both in their continuing efforts to have funding stay open, support families. So thank you for that.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none. Again, thank you very much for your presentation. At this time, I'll take a motion to accept the delegation.
Move receipt of delegations information.
Director Lee, second. Director Baker,
Second.
thank you. I'll call question. Is anyone opposed? See none, carried. Next item on the agenda is adoption of the minutes for the regular meeting held on August the 11th.
Move adoption.
Director Wally,
Second.
Director Evans, thank you. Any errors, omissions? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, carried. Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, no public considerations, no notice of motions. Chair's report. Just a couple items to bring to everyone's attention. UBCM next week, the CEO is registered. He'll have everything set up for here in the boardroom. So if any directors in town or coming to town on one of the days want to sit in on one of the workshops or some of the sessions, please do. Come on in. I received in the mail today when I got into the office a package from Fortis, and we have socks, people. We have socks. I'll put one in your mailboxes, and next time you're in, please pick them up. The other thing with UBCM, I don't know if everybody's aware of it, but Director Moglove has been acclaimed as the third vice president. So congratulations, Director Moglove. And that's about it I got for director's report or chair's report this time. So a motion to receive my verbal report.
Move receipt.
Director Lee, Director Adams, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Next on committee chair reports, Electoral Area Service Committee, motion to receive the minutes for the August 11th meeting.
Move receipt.
Director Wally.
Second.
Director Lee. Any errors, omissions? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Next item, Strathcona Gardens Commission. Motion for the draft minutes for the August 11th meeting.
Move receipt.
Move
Adams
receipt.
and
Second.
Evans. Any errors, omissions? Seeing none?
Chair, if I may,
Go ahead.
I just want to, as the chair of Strathcona Gardens Commission and also Vice Chair Lee, I want the rest of the board to know what an exceptional job the staff at Strathcona Gardens have done, not only throughout COVID, but with all of the maintenance and major equipment upgrades that they've been doing. And it's just been a really difficult time, and they've really stepped up and done an outstanding job. So I just wanted to make the rest of the board aware of the great job that our staff are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Adams. So on the receipt, I'll call question. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item M, staff reports, development variance permit, DV 2D21 Crute. Motion to receive the report.
Move receipt.
Second.
Director Wally, then Lee and Wally, thank you. I'll call question on receipt. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. And item B, the development permit DV 2D21 Crute be approved and a corporate
Could I
officer be
just-
authorized.
I would just like to ask one question through the chair to staff, because this is Area D. Have there been any further responses from the referral to the neighbors regarding this? Any input from the neighbors?
We'll go to staff.
Thank you through the chair to the director. We have not received any correspondence from adjacent neighbors with respect to this file.
Okay. So hearing that, I would move the recommendation. This is a fairly minor amendment. The garage is a 0.5 meter
Okay.
over height, so it's not a major variance.
Okay,
Second.
Seconder Director Wally, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item 2, development variance permit application DVP 1B21 Olmsted. Motion to receive CO report.
So moved.
Director
Second.
Anderson, Director Wally, second. Thank you. On receipt, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. And item B, development development variance permit DV 1B21 Homestead be approved and the corporate officer be authorized to issue a permit. Motion to do.
Mr. Chair, I'd actually like to move that this matter be deferred until we have further communication from the applicant.
Do you have a seconder?
Second.
Okay, Anderson and Moglove.
So speaking briefly to it, not wanting to rehash a whole bunch of EASC, but the applicant at the Advisory Planning Commission meeting here on Cortez had asked for some time to explore another option that I think was entirely fair. And I brought this forward to EASC and EASC didn't support it at the time, but I can't do anything other than try again. I'm happy to go into details if anyone else on the board wants more information, but EASC has it.
Okay, thank you. So
On the appropriateness of referral or deferral, I think it's inappropriate. We've been dealing with this issue for 3 months and it was referred out to the APC. It was referred out to the adjacent neighbors to talk to the applicant. It was the motion that's before you was defeated at the electoral area committee. So I don't really see how the board can refer out a defeated issue. In my opinion, defeated issues shouldn't even appear on a board agenda because it gives a chance for the minority to overturn the decision of the committee, and that's not it's not proper. So I'm voting against deferring it again for
Okay,
like the 3rd time.
okay. So we have a motion on the floor for to refer it. I'll call question. Electoral areas only.
Chair.
Jim has his hand up.
Okay, go ahead, Director Abram.
Yeah, thank you. I did have my hand up before Brenda there, but if you check back on the minutes of the EASC agenda, you will see clearly this motion was defeated. And through some sort of technicality, it shows up on the board today, but it was actually defeated and it should not be deferred once again because it's a defeated motion. It doesn't exist anymore. So as per the EASC minutes, it was defeated, and I think we need to confirm that defeat once again. So deferral would be inappropriate. Moving the motion would be fine. And we'll defeat it again.
Okay, any other discussion? So on the referral motion, call question, is anyone opposed?
I'm opposed.
Yes.
Lee,
Wally opposed.
Abram, Wally, all opposed, so the motion is defeated. So going back to the main motion then, the development permits, DV 1B 21 Homestead be approved and corporate officer be authorized. Need a mover and a seconder.
So moved.
You can't.
Dr. Larry's.
Anderson.
Sorry, Director Anderson is moving it.
I will move it, sure.
Cool, and a seconder?
Can't defeat it unless it's on the table, folks. Committee is the decision-making body.
Question, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
It says all electoral areas or electoral director areas. So we can only talk on the issue. We cannot vote.
Correct.
As others, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear on that.
Mr. Chair.
Director Adams.
Thank you. When I read this, I was a little surprised to see it on the agenda. And as we have been reminded many times, this is an electoral area director's issue, and the EAs need to either recommend approval or denial and not leave this up to the board, as we are not privy to the specifics of this issue, and I'm not really clear why it is even here when it was defeated at the EA. Thank you.
Well, if I can, Mr. Chair, I mean, the committees just make recommendations to the board. So the reason it's here is they made a recommendation for the variance to be approved. It was not approved, and that needs to be confirmed at the board. So to either, if the EA director's wishes to either support or deny it, then I think this needs to be seconded and vote appropriately.
Mr. Chair.
Anybody can second.
Mr. Chair, I would second the motion for discussion.
Okay, so it's been moved by
And
Director
voting.
Anderson, second by Director Lee.
Right.
Is there any further discussion? I'll call question.
Question.
Those in favor, or is anyone opposed?
Wally
I'm
opposed.
opposed.
So Wally, Lee, and Abram are opposed.
Yes,
Defeated. Thank you.
thanks.
Item 3, Canis View Estates motion to receive the report from CAO.
So moved.
Abram, second.
Abram.
Second.
Second by Wally. Call question on receipt. Is anyone opposed to receipt? Seeing none, carried. And item B, that the legal opinion of the Canis View Estates property regarding the ability for future subdivision be obtained. This is all electoral areas.
So moved.
Abram,
Second.
Wally. Any further discussion?
Director Cornfield.
Director Cornfield.
Thank you, Chair. I guess my question goes back to the first part, and where all directors we can receive something, which is fine. But in the report, there was no copy of the current. Oh, what am I looking for? The what's that? The covenant. There was no copy of the covenant, so I can't even see what the covenant was saying. So in terms of next time, can we make sure that we have those kind of things so that if we do have knowledge or experience, that it can be shared with the rest of the board?
Okay, thank you, Director Cornfield. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Director Abram?
Yeah, just to clarify for Director Cornfield, I agree the covenant's not there. But the Coles notes on the covenant, a large piece of property wanting to develop along Canish View, Granite Bay, 17 extra lots, way below the allowed minimum. In order to do that, they had to leave a remainder property of 80 acres, which they did. And part of that deal was that there would be no further subdivision. And now there is dispute by the owner of that property, who's the same owner as, signed on to the covenant way back then, is now saying that there's a catch in there that says that you can't subdivide below the existing zoning. Well, the existing zoning on those properties is 10 acres. So there would be an extra 8 10-acre lots, which would completely eliminate the bonus density that was given to the 17 lots to cut their lots way down to be waterfront. So they're trying to push it. The one person has become a realtor and they figure they know better than us. So we're getting a legal opinion.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? I'll call question. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Fire Protection Service proposal, Duncan Bay, Race Point, Gordon Head. Motion receives the CO report.
Move receipt.
Director Wally, second.
Second.
Director Lee, Q. On receipt, is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. And on to B, the further report be prepared, examine potential costs and other issues in relation to the proposal for the establishment of the Fire Protection Service for Duncan Bay, Race Point, and Gordon Bay Road areas.
Move B.
Director Wally,
Second.
Director Lee, any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Next item, Sayward Valley Fire Service Review. Motion to receive the report.
Move receipt.
Director Wally, second.
Second.
Director Lee. On receipt, anyone opposed? See none, carried. And there's an item added today, a letter from Sayward, which is item B. And I'll go to Director Baker. Sorry, motion to receive it first.
So moved.
Director Lee, seconder.
Second.
Director
Davis.
Davis, thank you. And I'll go to Director Baker.
Yeah, sorry for the late item. However, we just had our council meeting last night and I needed approval on it. There is some concerns that we had. One is on numerous occasions, the CAO has sent documentation to the SRD in terms of what is owned and shared in terms of fire equipment. For example, the truck that's referred to in the staff report, it's a 2007 Freightliner truck. I have an agreement showing that it is a shared asset and it is not owned strictly by the SRD. And there's apparently a few other problems with that, identifying assets. What's also that we looked at, and I don't know if you had an opportunity to read the letter, is we're supporting B, of course, because some of the other options that have been made available is going to cost both the valley and the village a lot more money. Plus, we're going to have a difficult time getting or supporting and having people to be able to do both jobs or be able to service the valley and not the village and back and forth. Also, in terms of cost shared, it's shown that it's close to 70% of the calls are in the valley. Now, right now we're running a 60-40. And I understand that Director Wally wants more input and to be more involved, and we want to open that door for him. We want to have public forums anytime we're discussing or getting into anything to do with the fire services. And I think that, and hopefully Director Wally will be involved in that and will attend. We have to form a better working relationship, and it's not going to be by separating the valley and the village. Also, we have to look at, sorry, is the flooding and the comments that were made during the electoral meeting last, I believe it was on the 11th of August. It was somewhat offensive that the fire chief and the deputy fire chief aren't familiar with what happens in terms of the flooding. It wasn't suggested that they believe that Hall 2 would flood. It's just access getting to Hall 2 from major flooding that we do have is a concern. And it's been a concern for a while, and it has been brought up, and we would like to see the fire hall 2 moved into a secured area to where we don't have to be concerned about flooding, and the fact that volunteers can actually access the building during mass flooding. So I'd like the board to consider, and for Director Wally to consider, we need to sit down at the table, get more information, work together closer. But in terms of separating the fire departments, it's something that we are completely against. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Baker. Is there anything else on receipt of the letter?
I have a comment.
Director Wally, go ahead.
Yeah, my personal preference is to separate. Our taxes are so low in the valley that we can afford the increase in cost. As to the division of assets, it's historical knowledge how those are split, so that's not really a problem to resolve. Regardless of those comments I've just made, I think for the sake of cooperation, the recommendation that staff is making here is probably to the benefit of both the village and the valley. So I support that we go ahead with that negotiation.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other further discussion? Okay, I'll call question on receipt of item B. Anyone opposed? Seeing none carried. And item C, the concept of a sub-regional service model for the fire protection through the regional district will be investigated for the village of Sayward and the Sayward Valley, following which that a further report be prepared for the board's consideration.
Move, Steve.
Moved by Director Wally.
Ken Davis.
Second by Director Davis. Any further discussion? I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none carried. Thank you. Item 6, Regional Fire Protection Service Feasibility Study. Motion, receive the report.
Move receipt.
Director Wally, seconder.
Second.
Director Lee, on receipt. I'll call questions. Anyone opposed?
I have my hand up, Mr. Chair.
You have your hand up on receipt, Director Abram?
Well, I could do it either place. It's up to you.
Well, if it's on receipt, or is it on B?
It's on the entire issue. So I
Okay,
guess
well,
receipt would probably be the place.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I'd just like to say that at this point, that I would personally love to have a regional fire service that would include Quadra Island and whatever other areas we could fit in. But I have to inform the board that you will absolutely be wasting your time with the South Quadra Island Fire Protection District. They have stated so emphatically.
Director
over and
Abram,
over
you're
again,
talking about item B.
Well, okay, sure.
Okay,
We'll put it on B.
Okay, so let's finish off the receipt. So I'll call question on receipt. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none carried. Item B, that up to 40,000 be authorized to spend from the Regional Feasibility Study Fund for the feasibility of regional fire protection. Motion for B.
I'll move B.
Cornfield. Second,
Second, Davis.
Davis. Director Abram, go ahead.
Okay, thank you once again. Sorry if I butted in early, but seemed like it fit. The South Quad Island Fire Protection District is an improvement district. They have met with this regional district and our previous Comox Strathcona Regional District a couple of times, and they are basically of the opinion over my dead body that we will have anything to do with any other fire service. They also don't get along with BC Wildfire Service. They counter everything they do. They've stated emphatically that they do not want to be part of an SRD fire service. And as a local improvement district, I haven't any idea, and I'd have to go to staff to ask that question. Is there any way to force that upon them? And if not, then we would be wasting our time and our money to try and include Quadra Island South Quadra Fire Protection District in this feasibility study. They absolutely will not join. There would be rebellion. So, can their improvement district be overridden by municipal affairs? They're granted their powers through municipal affairs. So I kind of doubt that they would, just sort of shun them. So I just don't know. I need some staff advice, senior staff advice as to what the deal is here.
Okay, I'll go to staff. Mr. Yates.
Well, first of all, the easy one, no, we couldn't override the improvement district. We couldn't force them into it. But presumably what we're doing here at the study would look at bringing some advantages to all the fire services through, as Sean's outlined in the report, purchasing, training, admin, looking at things that would be beneficial to them. So we wouldn't bring anything to the committee, the board, or these communities that didn't have some benefit to the service. And so if we brought something that would have some benefit to the Quadra Island Fire Service and they weren't interested in it, then I suppose that would be their loss.
And Mr. Yates, did you have
Okay, well, I do. Do you understand that this could be a benefit to them, but as I have said, they have been very clear that they really don't want anything to do with combination of services, etc. And they have purchased all of their own equipment. They've got top of the line, $350,000 trucks. They're building a second new fire hall, all on their own, all with money that they've stashed away over the years. Our taxes are incredibly high for a fire protection district of the size that we have, but that's the way it goes. We have to pay them separately, other than to the regional district. We pay them to the South Quadrant. So, I'm going to be looking to staff for advice. I cannot at this point support the feasibility study, just because I know that, part of that $40,000 is going to come from Area C, and I don't really want to get lynched.
Okay, I'll go to Mr. Yates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to be clear, I do believe that the intent of the initiative here is not to be looking at amalgamating fire services, but simply to be looking at coordination of certain specific functions that are common to all fire departments. And in my view, this is like step 2 of 89 steps. It's really, really early in the process. We don't know what we don't know yet, and the purpose of this evaluation would be to discover, are there things that would be of common benefit and that would make sense for public funding to be spent on them? And that's really the question to be asked. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yates. Mr. Coupin, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing to add. Mr. Yates captured that perfectly.
Great, thank you. Okay, thank you, Director Abram. I'll go to Director Anderson.
Thank you. I would echo Director Abrams' comments with a little bit less emphaticism, but that there's certainly been many discussions over the years about the regional district sort of taking over the fire department here. So I'm glad to know this is a proposal that would be in addition to and complementary to all the existing fire services that we have, rather than any attempt at amalgamation. But clearly there's some caution there. So I won't belabor that much further, but I do want to say that this, as far as I'm aware, this wasn't in our strategic plan. It hasn't been a priority that the board has collectively identified. I think this is something that came out of MSC, so clearly there's some interest by some of our member municipalities, at least in this, and maybe some value. But I continually hear from staff that, you know, it's these kinds of things, these new initiatives that further burden staff's capacity to get at core work. And I don't see how this service would provide a huge amount of service that the fire departments couldn't do by collaboration internally, like the community health network, right? It's a networking capacity within a number of different organizations rather than some, you know, a specific service initiative. So yeah, I think I'd be voting against this at this time, but happy to hear what others have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Wally.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, and further to what Director Avon and Director Anderson said, Area A would never participate in a regional fire protection service. It potentially could have some benefits. It could logically make some sense. Politically, it makes no sense whatsoever for Area A. We'd never join it. You guys knew that before you ever initiated the idea. I have a suggestion, though, that I did make once before. We have a municipal services committee that has absolutely no services. This would be a golden opportunity for the municipalities to have a service if you want to make a municipal service, but a regional service will never fly. You're just wasting your money. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Wally. Director Cornfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess all this is done is just to be a regional feasibility study fund. So I don't know why everybody's getting paranoid that the regional district is going to take over their fire departments or anything else, because that's not what it's about. It's about how we work together. And if you want to see a problem, wait till you get a forest fire or wildfire. Well, I got news. Most of them don't start inside municipalities, but they're in electoral areas. When it goes, we need everybody to work together. And I mean, to hear comments like I've heard today, ooh, well, it doesn't affect us. Ooh, we're not going to play. Well, when the forest catches on fire, it doesn't care whether there's an artificial line on the ground. It burns. And when we get going, the interior is a prime example. What happens? A lot of people suffer, and it takes the combined efforts of everyone. And that's all this is a feasibility study. It commits no one to anything. It's about how can we all work together and cooperatively deal with issues that could affect us all. And it's how do we support each other in a worst case situation. So that's why we created a feasibility study fund in the first place, and staff have come to it and said, hey, it's a good idea to do this feasibility study. Doesn't commit us to anything, but it's a first step, as Mr. Yates said, first step in an 80-step process. And if it passes from there, we go on to the second step or third step or 53rd step or whatever it happens to be. But we got to start somewhere, and it's about how do we all work together.
Thank you, Director Cornfield. Director Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, it is $40,000 wasted because for Area D, from our point of view, half of the southern half of my area is covered by the Oyster River Fire Department, which is outside the jurisdiction of the SRD board. And we do have a fire service that's operating very efficiently. And then on not at all. We had a report about the Campbell River fire servicing Northern Area D. I don't have, we decided at the electoral areas, there's no problem on that service. We're not objecting to it or wanting to change it. So basically, there's no application for that 40,000 in Area D. We have mutual aid agreements between Oyster River and Campbell River and Courtney for forest fires. We have the Forest Fire Service that is supposed to help with wildfires. And also, we decided for Cortez this morning that we're doing a study on Cortez to see if they need, what was it, some kind of super tanker set up to run water between communities that might catch fire. They're in preliminary stages of figuring that out. We have Sayward and Sayward Village, Sayward Valley, and we've got reports that we just passed to evaluate those services and see how they can be, negotiated. We're way far away from actually putting in a regional service. We need to do the groundwork on Sayward and Cortez. So spending $40,000 out of feasibility would be better spent on issues like the community health network that we heard from today, where people are needing money to run programs that are already up and running. There's better ways to spend our money right now, not saying that we might not consider once we do the preliminary studies that we're working on. We might not consider this in a year from now, but right now, that is $40,000 down the tube.
Okay, thank you. Director Davis.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Personally, I support this idea. I tend to concur more with what Director Cornfield was saying. I think what this is about is trying to identify gaps in services and find some commonalities and find better ways to work together. I know already, as you might remember, TASIS already has a fire service agreement with one of the local resorts, and we have actually brought our fire department out to fight a forest fire that's within the TFL and outside our municipality. So I just see this as an extension of that and a way to work together. And sure, it's 40,000, but I think it could potentially be well spent. So I will support it.
Thank you. Director Colburn.
Good afternoon, everybody. I think that, I just thank Sean and staff for bringing this forward. It would be great to have a state of affairs of kind of the regional and municipal assets, where they're at, what's going on with those, and if this is the money it takes. Then I think that that's money well spent. It's almost from my perspective here in the village of Zabalas, this is almost have nots. What have you got? What have not other people got? And so I won't go into the state of affairs that's here in Zabalas right now, but I would really appreciate the information and finding out what best practices are, where the departments are working. And it's great to know that all of these outstanding departments are working in your areas, but why are they working so well, and how does that happen, and how can we step up our game here? So thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you. Director Baker.
I agree with Director Davis, Cornfield, and Coburn. I mean, I think it's important to have some regional aspect in knowing what everybody else has, and the opportunity to work together. As Director Cornfield mentioned, if we do have any wildfires, I mean, that's generally doesn't start in the municipalities, and we need to be prepared. And I think the study is going to help in that direction. So I fully support it.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other first-time speakers? If not, Director Abram, do you have something new?
Yes, thank you. The issue that was brought up by Director Anderson about adding new projects to our agenda, our board staff agenda for the year is diverting our resources from things that we have already agreed are priorities, our strategic priorities, or our daily priorities. And we keep telling each other, and our staff keep telling us that we've got to stop bringing new items to the table all the time because it stops us from dealing with the items that we've already agreed are important and need to be done. Our last few meetings, we have had various discussions about how certain things haven't been done yet. Why hasn't this been done yet? Well, this is why, because we keep coming up with new things. I'm not saying this isn't something that we should look at maybe in our next year's priorities, but for this year, let's get the business done that we already approved and move on. The idea of knowing what everybody has is great, but it's not going to do us any good. The example just now here in the outer islands, we had big fire up at Sonora Island. It was only 7 hectares, but who put it out? Mainly the locals with the additional support of BC Wildfire Service after a day, some bucketed helicopters, and some on the ground firefighters. But that is not something that any other fire department could have or would have been able to help us with. Cream River right now, at the end of Bottle Lake.
You're getting off
That's
topic.
on fire. Still.
Okay.
No, I'm not. I'm saying there's a municipality that can get out there and help with that. So what difference does it make if you know what they have? You can't use it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see other directors' comments, so indulgence of the board, I just have a couple quick comments. I support this 100%. This is something that it's going to be information coming back to the board and to the areas and municipalities for information. Comments like wasted money, we haven't wasted any money yet. We haven't seen the report yet. So that's incorrect. And even Director Abram, about new items. Well, item 3 was a new item. That wasn't in our strat plan either. So let's just deal with the issue we have on the table today. It's about looking at a feasibility study. So on that, I'll call question on the motion. Is anyone opposed?
Lee?
Director Lee's opposed. Abrams opposed. Wally and Anderson opposed. Hearing none other, I call that carried. Thank you very much. Item 7, Municipal and Regional District Tax Program. Motion to receive the report from the CEO.
So moved.
Cornfield and Evans, thank you. On receipt, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? See none carried. And item B, the Strathcona Regional District support the City of Canberra River's renewal application for the Municipal and Regional District Tax MRDT program.
Move B.
Cornfield. Seconder?
Moglo, second.
Moglo, thank you. Any discussion? Director Anderson?
Yeah.
Thank you. I would have loved to have seen a little bit of information about the program if you're looking for our support for renewal. I trust if you want to renew it, it's a good program. I don't question that. If you're looking for our support, I'd love to know a bit about it. Like how much has been collected? What are some of the kinds of things that have been undertaken over the, was it 3 years it's been operational? If there's anything that perhaps Canberra River directors could share with us, I'd be grateful.
Okay, thank you. Director Lee.
I think the motion should be amended to remove the words "and regional district tax." As far as I know, the MRDT does not apply outside the municipal boundaries. The municipal hotels, motels have all been consulted about this 3% extra hotel room tax. But I just want to clarify that that it doesn't involve accommodations in the rural areas. And that those words in the motion here of the municipal and regional district tax is, I think, presuming that the regional district is taxing their hotels. I don't think they are. So I need clarity on that.
Point of order?
Point of order what?
A point of order?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, you're calling on me?
Yes, you call point of order, Director Abram.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't say my name, so, okay. I just wanted to politely correct Director Lee. We applied for the MRDT a number of years ago and went through, major business cases, et cetera, and all the votes at all the hotels and everything, and were granted the ability to take part in the MRDT. And that's, it fell by the wayside because the Chamber of Commerce fell apart, but now it's back on the table again, and we're going to go for it. So we are
Who's we?
not
the regional district.
Who is we? Is it Quadra? Yeah.
Area
C,
C, which is regional district. Okay, so it does apply to regional district rural areas.
Thank you.
That's all I wanted to point
Thank you,
out.
Director Abram.
But not Area D.
Doesn't have to be, it's regional district. They're within the regional district. Director Adams.
Thank you, Chair. And responding back to Director Anderson, if you recall, Kirsten Sauter from Destination Campbell River and Destination Think did do a delegation to the SRD board a while back, explaining the tourism initiatives that are being generated out of the city of Campbell River and are with offering to regional electoral areas and regional municipalities within the SRD, and explained what the MRDT was. This has been extremely successful for the past 6 years for the city of Campbell River, and is not a tax on our existing residents. It is a fee that is added on to the accommodation sector, which then funnels back through to the municipality, to Destination Campbell River, solely for tourism initiatives to be able to continue to expand. That has to be vetted by the provincial government, the Ministry of Tourism, and they also need to approve the MRDT. So if you would like Kirsten Sauter to come back and give an update, particularly in the post-COVID or hopefully post-COVID environment, I'm sure she would be pleased to do so. But this is using a revenue stream from people that are visiting us to attract more people to visit us even further. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Adams. Director Moglove.
Thanks. Director Adams said mostly what I was going to say, but I just wanted to make sure that Director Lee understands that the municipal and regional district tax, that's the name of the program that has been that is provided or was initiated by the province. It is the title of the tax program, and then different municipalities and or regional districts can participate as they see fit. For many years, the city of Campbell River did not participate in the MRD, this particular tax program. I think it was finally brought into the city of Campbell River in, I'm going to say, Andy can correct me if I'm wrong, around 2015. And that it required the approval, consent of over 50% of the hoteliers representing more than 50% of the rooms. So then each electoral area can also say yay or nay. But the title of the tax program is Municipal and Regional District Tax Program. It's not, so it's not mandatory, if you know what I mean. Like it's still voluntary. Okay.
Great, thank you, Director Moglove. And Director Cornfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just so that everybody's clear, we contributed and paid for the tourism function on a regional basis for years on our own in Campbell River. when the MRDT program was, when Campbell River participated, one of the requirements is we still have to commit the funding that we provided previously. So this doesn't replace funding that we spent. This is in addition to the funding that's there. So roughly 50% is still funded by the city of Campbell River alone. But the marketing and promotions is regional wide. And that's what we do to manage tourism, because that's something that affects all of us. Anyway, it has no impact on anybody other than those that participate in that program, which is limited to the city of Campbell River's hoteliers, and it's on and accommodation providers. It's on, they participate, they decide how the money is spent each year. And it's reported back by, as his worship said, on by Destination Campbell River. And it's a program that runs extremely well. And so it provides a source of funds directly to the businesses that participate in it, and they determine how it's best spent.
Thank you, Director Cornfield. I don't see any further questions, so I'm going to call.
Mr. Chair, I would just like to say one more thing. I'd like to thank Director Moglove for clarifying that that's the title, because it makes me feel better. I was around when Tourism Campbell River went over to becoming a city-run tourism operation, and I know that the hoteliers and whatnot were consulted about the hotel tax, and as was stated by Director Moglove, you need to have 50% of the participants, or more than 50% of the value of the properties, to join that function. And I don't think that outreach was ever done in Area D. I don't think any Area D hotels, motels or campgrounds were consulted, and I don't think we're part of the program. But I wanted to check on the wording of that motion to make sure that, I don't have an objection to Area D's businesses participating in MRDT if they give consent, if they're consulted and they give consent. But as far as I know, that process was never undertaken in Area D, so I don't know what they would say about it.
Okay, thank you. Director Evans.
Thank you. Now, maybe just to add one more comment to this, and that's that if the regional district decides to apply, the municipalities need to support. And conversely, if the municipality is applying, regional districts have to give letters of support. So this is just part of an application process. It would be the same regardless of who is applying for the MRD tax. In this case, it's a renewal, but that consultation takes place through the form of a letter or letter of support in order for us to go forward with renewal. So as part of the formal renewal application that requires these letters of support and consultation.
Great, thank you, Director Evans. And to wrap it up, Director Adams.
Thank you. And just to be clear, if an electoral area or a municipality do not want to participate, that is entirely at their discretion. And that is something that Kirsten, when she came and did the presentation, made very clear. We have some municipalities that have joined in and participated and benefited from Destination Campbell River's marketing and promotion. But the choice is ultimately up to you. It doesn't, by endorsing this letter, doesn't commit you to anything at any time.
Thank you, Director Adams. So on that, I'm going to call a question on the motion. Is anyone opposed? Hearing none, I'll call that motion carried. Item 8, liquor license, structural change application. Motion to receive the report.
Moved.
Lee and Abram. Thank you. On receipt. I'll call question.
I have a supplement.
Okay, thank you. On receipt, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none carried. Director Abram, we have a subsequent.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that the SRD provide a letter of support as mentioned in option 1 for this particular establishment.
Second.
Second by Director Anderson. And we'll just wait for
And
you to get it up.
It's option 1 in the report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Director Adams?
yes, could I
No, Adams.
explain quickly?
Okay, go ahead, Director Abram.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. This establishment is a long way from anything, and community consultation would really be unnecessary, as there's not a community within many, many miles of where this establishment is. It's historic. It's been there forever, and the people that own it have owned it for a number of years now. Have been working their butts off to try and get it back on the map. And people do stop there on a regular basis, transiting from places like Campbell River up through Discovery Passage and, on north. So, I hope that you'll support this and give them a little added income to their site.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? I'll call question on the motion. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item 9, North Island 911 Corporation shareholder resolution. Motion to receive the report.
I'll move receive the report. Mogul.
Second.
Second, Evans.
Evans. Anything to add, CEO?
Unless Tom has something to add?
No, Mr. Chairman, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but certainly if there's questions, we'll try to answer them. Thank you.
Okay, on receipt, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Director Anderson, you have a question?
Yeah, I believe the same issue came up for me last year. This seems like we're being asked to kind of rubber stamp formality on something that we have no content for. We're being asked to support a bunch of decisions that have been made. Sorry, I don't have the thing in front of me here with regards to agreements, et cetera, but we don't have any of those before us. So I think when this came up last year, we asked for some more substantive information, and I don't know if we ever received that. I trust the 911 Corporation is doing great work and would like to support their continued efforts, but it doesn't seem like due diligence to approve something that we don't have before us. So I don't know if Director Mogilev has anything further to add, being our rep there, or whether anybody on the board or staff can remember if we received any substantive information last year when we asked for it. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to receipt. We're still on receipt, so I'm going to call question on receipt. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Do we have any subsequent from any director? Director Mogilev, you have a question?
I don't have a subsequent, just to reply to Director Anderson. Because the nature of 911 as a corporation, as opposed to a committee or whatever, all of the decision making at that corporation at the table are then encompassed in these resolutions. And to a large degree, it's a formality similar to the formality of the last item that was on the agenda in terms of the letter of support. In many ways, it's a formality. So like the financial statements that were approved by the directors of 911, that would have come to the board, or it's not actually, to our group, and looked at the financial statement. So this is codifying, I suppose, what has happened at the table at 911. And I think partly has to do with the structure, how it's structured. It's sort of an anomaly compared to some of the others that we have. So I understand your concern, but I suppose on the other hand, if all of the financial statements and all of the contracts, et cetera, were appended to the report would probably be 200 or 300 or 500 pages. And so, there has to be a balance in terms of, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, Thank
So
you.
I guess my question to you, Director Moglov, is what are the regional district, does the 911 Corporation need of the regional districts? Why is it not an autonomous body that doesn't need this annual kind of endorsement? And specifically, do we need to pass a resolution embedded here anyway to support all of these beyond receipt? What is the request? Thank you.
Well, because each of the regional districts, and Dave or Tom can correct me if I'm wrong, each of the regional districts is a shareholder in the corporation. So as a shareholder in the corporation, we make decisions on the behalf of the corporation. But because we're shareholders, each of the regional districts have to endorse the decisions of the individual regional districts' decision-making. But we're shareholders. That's why it has to come back to each individual board to confirm the decisions, and has to be done by way of a shareholders resolution. That's why it's a shareholders resolution and not some of our others are motions, right? This is a shareholders resolution that are being approved. So Tom, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, or if I've.
Yeah, that's fine, Director Mogul. Mr. Yates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in the report, there are 3 alternatives listed for the board's consideration. And from what I'm hearing, there may not be concerns about the request from the 911 Corporation, in which case option A, that the regional district consent to and adopt the shareholder resolutions, would be the appropriate resolution for this board to adopt today. If, on the other hand, there are concerns, either with lack of information or other things, then the board could choose either B or C out of the staff report, and we would then make the board's concerns known to the corporation. But otherwise, by the sound of it, option A may be the appropriate way to go today.
Yes, and I'll move option A, that the regional district consent to and adopt the shareholder resolutions as requested by the North Island 911 Corporation.
Second.
And I'll second that.
Director Lee, thank you. Any further discussion? Call question.
I do. I just wanted to say that I have every confidence in Director Moglov and her representation of the SRD on the 911 board. And if this is good with her, it's good with me. There's no way that our regional district can actually run an organization, an external appointment from the SRD and go through all the documents and contracts and things. I'm confident that Director Moglov's doing that. And if she's good with this, I'm good with this.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll call question on the motion. Is anyone opposed? See none, carried. Okay. Item 10, Strathcona Garden User Group Insurance. Motion to see the report from the CEO. Director Adams, second by
Evans.
Director Evans. On receipt, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? See none, carried. And item B, the Regional District Renew User Group Insurance coverage with All Sport Insurance Marketing Limited.
Move approval.
Move B.
Move Adams and Evans, thank you. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Director Lee?
So this is like an additional layer of insurance for our user groups to access. But is this not something that the MIA might provide? Like, I don't know why we're not buying insurance from MIA instead of a private provider.
Go to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So staff have been looking into this very carefully. The MIABC does offer an alternative. It's a little bit different and we're still studying it. So I think that's why we have included recommendation number C in this report, that for the time being, I think we'd like to recommend continuing with All Sport Insurance, which we've been with for many, many years. But at the same time, we'd like to explore some alternative options and with the possibility that we may wish to recommend a change in the near future.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other questions. I'll call question on the motion. Is anyone opposed? Carried. Item C, the Regional District explore alternative options for facilitating access to the liability insurance for users of Strathcona Gardens.
So moved.
Director Lee, Director Adams. Any questions? This is Cam River and electoral area D. Anyone opposed? See none carried. Item 11, proposed financial planning timeline for 2022. Motion to receive the report.
So moved.
Director Adams and Dr. Abram, thank you. On receipt, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed?
Just hang on, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I can't access my hand.
Okay, well, we're just on receipt.
I'd just like to, yes, I know, and this is just a question concerning the receipt. That is, I'm assuming that all of these meetings could be done virtually as we're doing our meetings now. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, on receipt, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? See none carried. And before we go to item B, I think Mike is here to bring some information in. Mike?
Hello, sorry, I have nothing to add on that.
Okay, thank you. So on to B then, that the 2022 financial plan timeline attached to the report from the CAO be approved. Moved by Director
Move
Colburn,
approval.
second by
Lee.
Director Lee. And discussion, Director Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you. I have an amendment to this I would like to put forward, so I'll turn to you as chair when you want to receive that. I looked at this calendar, and I went back and looked at last year's calendar, and I reviewed some of the audio recordings from the EASC meeting in February, where the EASC had concerns about lack of time to discuss shared services. And what I note on both this calendar and last year's calendar is that after the November one-on-one EASC meetings, it does not show anywhere in the calendar further EASC budget discussions. And what happened last year is we had one discussion at EASC where budget was presented as part of a regular EASC agenda to discuss shared services. And it was the first time that EASC had had the opportunity to discuss shared services. And we were told it was really too late to make substantive changes. I went back and reviewed this today. So I would like to make an amendment to this motion that I have in the chat. I can put up if that's your wish, to insert some further EASC budget meetings in the calendar so that we don't get into the snafu we had last year.
Okay, so before we go to that, I'm going to go to the CEO on your comments of the timeline from last year to this year.
Well, I'll just reiterate the philosophy that the policy speaks to in this is that when we enter the budget preparation, staff bring business cases forward. Those are initiatives that staff feel are important, opportunities to become available following strategic guidelines. Then we move into the one-on-ones with the electoral area directors. Coming out of that, we will then put those things together and implement them into a draft budget after some discussion with them. COVID year, staff had no business cases and there was no new initiatives brought up by the area directors. If there's no business cases and no new objectives by the area directors, there's no need for discussion. We move straight into a draft budget. If we go through this year and we have business cases by staff and or we have initiatives by the directors, we'll absolutely, as we've done in other years, implement those and bring them forward to the committees for discussion. We don't have those on the calendar because we don't know if they're going to happen. We have an EASC meeting in January. Should there be, again, initiatives by the electoral area directors and or any other committee that wants to bring initiatives forward, we'll do that. COVID year, we had none. So there was none to discuss. There was none to implement.
And I'm not speaking to new initiatives. I'm speaking to the 4 participants in a planning service or any participants in any shared services have an opportunity to speak amongst themselves in a substantive way about the service that they govern. Core business, not new initiatives. And so when the chair feels it's appropriate, I have an amendment that I put in the chat for consideration.
Okay, I'll go
Mr. Chair, just
yeah, go ahead.
just on that same note, if none of the area directors have any initiatives in the core services, once again, there's nothing to implement in the budget. That was the case last year. There was no initiatives within core services that were brought forward at the one-on-ones by any of the area directors.
Okay.
I understand. I think, Mr. Chair, my point isn't being understood. It's not about new initiatives. It's about how we manage our shared service. And out of that frustrated discussion last February, a motion was passed to bring forward a report on the status of our long-range planning function. Some 7-8 months later, we received a 2-page report that gave us a very, very high-level update, and the committee would like to be able to discuss our shared planning function as it relates to budget. So this is not about new initiatives. Okay. Last year, in my experience, was the first time that EASC members did not have an opportunity to discuss amongst themselves the service that we provide. Okay. And I'm just looking to interject that back in the schedule.
Okay, thank you. I'll go Director Lee.
Oh, I was trying to take my hand down, but I couldn't make it go down. So I would like more delineation in our budget timelines, because every year it seems that we get caught out with thinking that we're still in draft form and we're still working through issues. And then all of a sudden it comes up at the board and you can't change it. You know, it like you slide into a final decision without us even realizing that we're there yet. So I know what Director Anderson's saying. We used to work through the EASC budgets, like the shared services, and we actually used to have work plans. We would sit down and we would go through the proposed work plans and say, okay, this year, coming year, we're going to do the Area B rezoning bylaw, and we're going to do, you know, X, Y, and Z. And we talk it out with the planning staff, and then a work plan would be made. And this doesn't seem to, I think that's what Director Anderson's getting at, is that there's no opportunity for collaboration on how that funding is spent on the ground. And I'd like more delineation on the, you know, when we're at the edge of the cliff, when we need to get our final budget suggestions in before it becomes, you know, irreversible.
Okay, thank you. I think just on that comment alone, when you look at the timeline, it tells you right there when you're done, when you're moving to the next stage. So yeah, I think it's there. Director Abram.
Board deliberations.
Yes, thank you. Along with those comments that were just made by the previous two directors, I had this discussion with Dave earlier, and it seemed pretty clear, but I'm seeing, all I can see on my screen from Tom's presentation on the screen is from September 8th down to February 9th. On the November 3rd line, it says presentation of any strategic business cases. And then, now you just screwed me up, Tom. Okay, and then on November 17th, it says presentation of any strategic business. And then 9th of February, amended strategic business cases. So obviously there could be changes made in there. And 23rd, strategic business cases. Now, not to belabor this, but we have talked about two types of business cases at this table. And the strategic business cases were the ones that we would go through and we would say, yeah, we're going to take 5 strategic priorities this year, and here they are. And then a strategic business case would be developed for it and come back to us. We'd look at it. But I think the business cases that are also being talked about here are just, they're not strategic board business cases. They're strategic cases or just business cases for each area. So like I have business cases for certain things in area C, others have them in D and A and B. But I don't see any wording in here that would suggest that there's anything but a strategic business case. So maybe you could explain that to me. Maybe it's just your way of using the words and it all means the same thing. I don't know. But because I don't know, I have to ask the question. So is a strategic business case strictly what we choose as our strategic priorities?
I'll go to CEO.
Well, Mr. Chair, if I can answer that. So when you're looking on there and you're repeating strategic business case, we have East, Strathcona Gardens, Board, Municipal Services. So there's presentation of strategic business cases. Staff would never bring a business case that didn't align with the strategic plan of the regional district. So those are opportunities, again, that staff are going to bring forward for the board's review. Generally, the board, for the most part, accepts most of those, and then they look at the impact it has to the requisition when we bring a draft budget, and they determine if they have an appetite for that or not. The non-strategic business cases are a review of the electoral area services and their joint services. So those would be categorized as something that the electoral area director feel there's either a strategic case that they want to put forward, they want to implement additional services, they want to discuss joint services within the EAs, and staff would take that and bring them forward into a budget to identify with the director the implications in the financial plan would be.
Okay, thank you, CEO.
Okay, so where would those be inserted? Where would those be inserted, Dave?
Well, if I looked at the EASC meetings, for example, staff would bring on the third strategic business cases if we had any. In COVID year, we didn't have any. I'm not saying we're going to have any this year. On the 10th, we would go to the one-on-one meetings that the EA directors have requested. Those are meetings that the EA directors want to talk about their own services and shared services. We would take the feedback from that meeting and bring it to the next available meeting in January to discuss collectively what you've individually asked for. We've talked many times that the 4 EA directors are not on the same page as far as planning and shared services. So we bring that to if there was any discussion about that, we'd bring that to a January meeting. Presumably there would be some agreement on what that looked like for the 4 EAs. That would be implemented into a draft budget that would be brought forward in February.
Okay, I think I understand. Thank you.
Okay, so we're still on receipt. Sorry, we're finished receipt. Director Anderson.
Is the motion on the table the one from the staff report?
No. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes. No. Sorry. B is on the table now.
Okay. Thank you. So is it appropriate to make my amendment at this time, or do you want further discussion on the main motion?
We're done discussion. Go ahead.
Okay. So I would like to put forward that's very much in alignment with our CEO just said, which is great, that it would come back to EASC. Last year, EASC didn't get to discuss until February, and then it was really too late in the game. So the motion I'd like to put forward based on EASC discussions is that 2 EASC meetings be added to the schedule. At present, there are none. For substantive EASC budget discussions, which would both allow early and meaningful input to the budget, which would allow substantive budget amendments, most notably for the purpose of joint planning function. It's a bit, I was trying to craft it while you were all talking, so my apologies for the poor wording, but I'm trying to get that we have, it's early and meaningful enough that we can have actual input that changes the budget, not just in March.
So, Mr.
Second.
Chair, if that motion goes through, there is a scheduled meeting of EASC in January, but because we have a legislative timeline to approve the budget, it would require a second EASC meeting, if that's what the EASC directors want, at least a week prior to February 9th. I'm not sure why EASC would need 2 meetings to review this. There's one already on the calendar. I have no idea what the second would do for.
Okay.
So if I might, the first, in my view, could even happen in
Point of order,
November.
I don't think there's been a seconder for the amendment.
Yes.
Director Abrams seconded it.
Motion.
Sorry, I missed that.
Director Abrams seconded it.
So for the purposes of clarity, I don't mind having one meeting before the end of this calendar year to discuss more substantively the report that we received recently about the shared planning for a service and its anticipated impact on any budget deliberations. That would give us a bunch of time to think about it. And then if we could, in fact, include in our January meeting, which we didn't last year, some budget discussions that would allow us an opportunity to have substantive input. That's all I'm looking for. Is it present in the calendar? There's no budget EASC post the one-on-ones. And I'm looking for 2, 1 post or 2 post or 1 post and 1 prior. I don't mind.
Okay, so your motion's been moved and seconded. Timeline, looking at where we are in our agenda, I'm going to call a question on the motion. So at this time, I'll call those opposed. Item B is carried.
Thank you, Board.
That's the subsequent, correct?
That was the amendment.
That's
Now
the
we-
amendment.
Okay.
So now the motion is amended? Needs to be moved and seconded?
So
Sorry,
moved.
it's been moved and seconded. Needs to be voted on. Call question. Is anyone opposed? Carried. Thank you, gang. Item 12, proposed service agreement.
Mr. Chair, before we move on, I would also like to suggest that we have one Strathcona Gardens Commission budget meeting in January, similar to what Director Anderson has put forward for electoral areas. There's been some changes that might impact the budget quite substantially this year, and I think we need to have a special budget session with the commissioners to talk about what we do now.
I'll go to CO.
Mr. Chair, there's already a scheduled Strathcona Garden meeting in January, so I'm not
Okay.
sure if that's necessary.
Okay, just wanted to make sure because, yeah, there's going to be quite a lot of discussion on Strath Gardens, I think.
Okay, thank you. We're moving forward. On the proposed service agreement, Luttrich Family Life Society. Motion to receive the report.
So moved.
Moglove?
Leah Moglove. On report, I'll call question. Is anyone opposed? See none carried. Item B, that the 2021-2025 financial plan be amended to reflect the receipt of $1,020,279 in grant funding from UBCM Strengthening Community Services Grant Program.
Move B, Evans.
Evans, second.
Moglove, second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Call question. Anyone opposed? See none carried. And item C, the draft service agreement for the COVID-19 unsheltered homeless response be finalized with the Family Life Society approved by the UBCM grant community's application, and a chair and a corporate officer be authorized to execute it. Need a mover or
So
second?
moved.
I'll move C. Moglove.
Moglove, seconder.
Kerr.
Thank you, Director Kerr. Any discussion? See none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item 13, quarterly report from the BC Ombudsperson. Motion to receive the report.
So
So
moved.
move. Moglove.
Leah Moglove. On receipt, I'll call question. Anyone opposed? Carried. Any discussion? Seeing none. Number 14, public hearings for bylaw 385 Wilson, 434 Chan, 432 and 433 Quadra Links. Motion to receive the report.
Motion to receive, Abram.
Abram,
Second.
second by Lee.
And I will have,
Director Abram, I know you have
I will have a
subsequent.
subsequent.
Thank you. On receipt, call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none carried. And Director Abram.
Okay, the subsequent, I believe, has been given to Edie. She wants to put it up.
She is.
Thank you, Edie.
So your motion says that a date for public
No,
hearing
that's
be
not it.
set for a date after the mandatory
not it.
vaccination passport program is successfully implemented.
That's actually, it's the one that I submitted said that any dates for a public hearing be set for a date after the mandatory vaccination passport program is successfully implemented.
That's
So it's just
exactly,
slightly different.
that's exactly what I just read out.
It's exactly what I, yeah.
Okay, so moved by Director Abram. Do I have a seconder?
Second,
Director Lee, thank you. Anything to add, Director Abram?
No, I think what I will say about it is that I think that this motion will help actually the Premier, Minister, and Public Health Officer achieve their goal of getting more people out vaccinated. And it does not prohibit anybody from coming to any meeting, and it does not set any dates at this time. We still have a lot of work to do in order to get those dates set with our community hall. And they would probably be at very late October, early November, which is what we had planned all along anyway. So all this is doing is formalizing it.
Okay, Director Anderson.
I would just respectfully request of the mover that he would accept a friendly that just spoke to dates rather than the mandatory vaccine. I would happily support it if it said that any public hearing dates be set for late October or beyond. I don't want to reiterate too much of what discussion at East this morning, but linking the two, although I know it's in support of trying to get the vaccination rates up, we are not allowed to exclude people, unvaccinated people, from local government affairs, as far as I understand from a letter we're about to receive. And although this doesn't say we will, it raises that question. I don't think linking them are useful.
If I may, Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
as response, this does not exclude anybody from anything. And there is another side to this public gathering issue, and that's the, it's kind of a bizarre twist, but if there is not some sort of passport requirement in the future, whether it be passport or just your vaccination card or whatever, it would be prejudicial to people who have passports that won't want to attend a function at this venue, wherever it is, that are they're there with unvaccinated people attending.
Okay.
So this situation would be prejudicial to the majority of people who are vaccinated and who have done what they're supposed to do, and will either have passports or cards that show that they have been duly vaccinated.
Okay, so
But
Director Abram,
I don't want to set dates.
I'm taking you're not accepting her
I was
friendly
just going to
amendment.
say, no.
Okay, so let's.
I'm not.
Okay, so let's move on from there then. Director Mogulov.
Okay, fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand where Director Abram is going with this, and the problem I have with it is that it's so subjective. What does it mean? Who decides whether the program is successfully implemented? So I would be okay with if that word were removed, i.e. the vaccination passport program is implemented. My understanding of the program is that you have to download this card, partially vaccinated people by September 13th, and then is it sometime in October, I think it is, for people who have been fully vaccinated. And then you have this Q card, which then can be used to access various venues. To me, that is the program. So if that's all that's it meant, then I would respectfully request that the mover take out that word successfully, because I really don't understand why it's there, and it provides too much leeway for interpretation. And it's not a passport, it's a BC COVID-19 card, but I'll, I'm not going to mince words on this. So I understand where you're going, but I can't support it as written.
Okay, if I may, Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I would gladly take Director Moglov's advice and remove successfully.
Okay.
The only reason I put it in is because we know that things change on a daily basis with the provincial government, with the COVID situation, with all of the mandates, et cetera, et cetera. So I was trying to just suggest that it would be nice to see it actually happen, not partially happen or, conditionally happen or whatever. So if you want that word gone, that's fine. It still says the same thing.
Okay.
So I'm happy with it to just remove the word as a friendly.
Okay.
And can I suggest one more friendly, that instead of using the word mandatory vaccination passport program, that we use the actual terminology from the BC government, which is the BC vaccine card program. That's what it is.
It's proof of vaccination card.
I'm on their website right now. It's the BC vaccine card, which is the proof of vaccination.
So you want the motion to say that any date for public hearing be set for a date after the BC
vaccine card program
be implemented.
Yes.
One thing, Claire, if I could.
Yep.
I believe that the vaccine card is the one that you receive when you get your first and your second vaccine, and it's just the handwritten one.
No, I
Is
got my
this
Q
one
code today.
that you're
BC, the actual BC vaccine card. It's a Q code. I got mine downloaded to my phone today, and the code indicates whether you're partially or fully vaccinated.
Okay,
And it's
fine.
a Q code card.
I'll take your advice. Thank you very much.
Okay. So we'll look for, yeah. What did you call it again? Vaccine card?
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
It's the BC vaccine card.
Okay, so there it is there.
And all I would say is that word vaccine and card should both be capitalized because it's the name of the program. So we're all clear on, so we can't use those paper cards that we got when you got immunized. This is the actual Q card program that's digitized.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
But you can also use paper copy that you can print.
Temporarily.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to call question on the motion. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried.
Great, that was one. Anderson.
Anderson opposed? Kill? Okay, just a reminder for time-sensitive directors, we've got a fair bit to go through, and it's 20 after 2. Request for financial assistance, Royal Canadian. Excuse me?
Mr. Chair, if I could also do a reminder that the Strathcona Gardens Commission meeting starts at 3 o'clock.
Correct. Thank you, Director Adams. Item 15, request for financial assistance, Royal Canadian Legion, Sayward. Motion to receive the report.
Receipt.
Wally, second.
Second, Dr. Lee.
Please.
Could I see the agenda, Mr. Chair, please?
Sorry, go ahead.
Could I see the agenda?
Oh, it's coming. Okay, on receipt of the report, I'll call question. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. And item B, the board approved the grant for the Royal Canadian Legion Sayward branch in the amount of $1,000.
Move B.
Wally?
Second.
Second.
Lee? Thank you. Director Baker, a close second. Thank you. I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, carried. Bylaws. Bylaw 429, regional broadband. Motion to see the report.
Move receipt.
Director Wally, second. Director Baker, thank you. On receipt, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Call carried. CEO.
Move B.
Right, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to add a little comment here that I think is valid. So this is the borrowing authorization to do last mile in the communities that we were set out for grant funding. And so we put out that AAP for $12 million, and out of approximately 35,000 people, we only had 6 people object. I think that's significant.
Thank you. On to B, move the bylaw 429 being regional broadband infrastructure loan be authorized.
So moved.
Director Abram.
So moved.
Director
Abram.
Wally seconded. Okay, any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item 2, bylaw 441, Salmon Brewster Trail funding. Motion received the report.
Move receipt.
Director Wally.
Second.
Director Lee. Anything to add, CEO?
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. On receipt, I'll call question. Is anyone opposed? See none. Carried. And B, the bylaw 411 being Salmon Brewster Trail Development Funding Agreement authorization bylaw 2021 be now reconsidered, finally passed and adopted.
So moved.
Director
Second.
Wally, Director Lee. No discussion. Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item 3, bylaw 442, Principal of Tax Exemption, Surgeon Narrows Community Association. Motion received the report.
Moved by Abram.
Abram moved. Second.
Second.
Second by Director Lee. On receipt, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item B, the bylaw 442, being a bylaw provided for exemption from taxation, be read for the first time.
Move first.
Move B.
Lee and Abram. Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item C, rules be suspended. Bylaw 442 be given second and third readings.
Move second and third.
Lee and Abram.
Second.
Any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item D, bylaw 442 be reconsidered and finally passed and adopted.
So moved. Abram.
Abram.
Second.
Lee. Any further discussion? Call question. Anyone opposed? Carried. Bylaw 443, preserve tax exemption, Royal Canadian Legion. Motion received the report.
Moved.
Receipt.
Abram.
Abram.
Second.
And Lee. Call question on receipt. Anyone opposed? See none. Carried. Bylaw 443 being a bylaw to provide exemption for taxation. Now be introduced for the first
Moved.
time. Abram.
Second.
Second by Lee. Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item C, bylaw 443 be given second and third readings.
Moved. Abram.
Abram. Lee. Call
Sure.
question. Anyone opposed? Carried. And item D, 443, bylaw 2022 be reconsidered, finally passed and adopted.
Moved. Abram.
Abram, second by
Lee.
Second.
Davis.
Okay.
Anyone opposed? Carried. Bylaw 444, electronic participation. Motion receive.
Move receipt.
Dr. Wally, second by
Second.
Dr. Abram.
Second. Abram.
Go, and I go CO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So happy to answer any questions the board has, but the important thing I think what the directors would want to know is amendments to this bylaw allow participation from this day forward virtually. So the previous bylaw outside of COVID had that participation electronically would have had to been because of an act of nature or inability to attend the regional district. Amendments to this bylaw allow directors to participate virtually for as long as they wish.
Go. On receipt, I'll call question. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item B, bylaw 444, being a bylaw to amend the procedures application meetings for the regional board as committees be now introduced and read for the first
So
time.
moved.
Director
Move
Abram,
B.
Abram.
Abram, second by
Wally.
Wally. I'll call question. Anyone
Mr.
opposed?
Chair,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I have my hand up.
Okay, question, go ahead.
Thank you. The last two bulletins in the background, there is no, one of them is there is no significant noise or interference, or that their physical premises are secured for conducting confidential business. I don't know what you mean by the last one, and I don't see how a director can guarantee that there would be no noise or interference while they're trying to participate in it. Like, it wouldn't be their fault if there was noise or interference on their internet line. So I think those two bullets need to be looked at some more to make sure that they're actually doable.
Yeah, Director Lee, I'll try and I'll tackle it first, if not, Mr. Yates can. I think what they mean by noise is background noise, TV, radio
Barking
going
dog.
on, you know, that kind of stuff.
Okay. So it doesn't mean, like static interference on the
No,
line or,
that's under anybody's control. Your internet
Okay.
lines, yeah, that's under your control. It's more like, say, you know, if you're sitting in your small office in your house, you know, doing your meetings, it's going to be very quiet. If you're sitting in your kitchen and, you know, the TV's on and, you know, the radio's on, that type of thing is what I take is what the understanding is.
okay. So it would be like noises like specific to your home, like your barking dog or your, wife is yelling at you to do the lawn or something. Then the other thing is, the other one, I didn't know what it meant. Provided your physical premises are secure for conducting confidential business. Does that mean like you shouldn't have anyone else in the room where you're conducting your business if it's in camera?
That's correct.
Okay. Could we be more like clear on that language so that everyone knows that that's what it means?
I think the language is there for your own interpretation. I think we all understand, you know, what secure is. So not having other people in the room, I don't think it's hard and fast that you have to be in a locked room. Just understanding the premise of it.
Oh, Mr. Gates has a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the board should realize that that language has been in your bylaw for 5 or 6 years. It has not been a problem as far as I know in terms of interpretation. It really is upon each director to ensure that they are in a setting that allows them to keep confidential information confidential. And so that language is not proposed to be removed from the bylaw. It's proposed to be left in there. There was a slight alteration to some other related language to do with wireless devices, but that's not really affecting the whole principle of directors ensuring that they are in fact secure when discussing confidential business.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll call question on item B. Anyone opposed? Carried. At item C, the rules be suspended for bylaw 444, be given second and third readings.
Move C.
So moved.
Wally and Abram. Call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item 4, the bylaw 444 being Regional Board Procedure Bylaw 2011 Amendment 9 be reconsidered, finally passed and adopted.
Move D.
So moved.
Wally and Abram, thank you. I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Correspondence. We have 3 items of correspondence.
Move all 3 to be
In
received.
Syria, please.
Second.
Do they move all 3?
Yes.
And second
I
by Direct.
asked for them to be in seriatim.
Okay, item 1. Motion receive legislative reform initiative.
Move receipt.
Second.
Joe? Any discussion? Okay, so on this, I'll just be quickly, because everybody's got a copy of the report from this first meeting of many coming, I think. It's the beginning of the process on this regional district initiative, or legislative reform initiative. If you look at the board theme, what is captured, that's basically what they're looking forward, moving forward. There is a request there of the board wishes at this time for the board to endorse the legislative reform initiative moving forward. So if the board would like to, somebody want to make a motion to that? Sorry, we're still on receipt. Thank you. So on receipt, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seen none, carried.
And as a subsequent,
Subsequent, Director Abram?
I would move the italicized paragraph that's in the letter.
Thank you. Seconder?
I'll second.
Mogul, thank you. And discussion? Director Anderson?
Yeah, I would just like a little bit more time with this one to be able to read more fulsomely the report and perhaps speak with some people involved. I don't know much about this. So I would like if we could defer this for a month.
Second.
Okay, deferred for 1 month. Director Anderson, Director Cornfield. Cool. I'll call question on the deferment.
I make a comment on deferral.
Go ahead.
There's no reason why we could not pass the resolution and defer it for 1 month.
Yes, there is.
Okay, it's been moved and second for defer. I'll call question on the motion. Is anyone opposed? Carried.
Yes.
I'm opposed.
Abram.
Abrams.
Mogul, I'm opposed.
Evans opposed.
Abram opposed.
Kerr opposed.
Davis opposed.
Wally's opposed.
How did you do, Tom?
We're talking about the deferral, right?
Yeah.
So all these oppositions are for deferral.
Director Adams, were you opposed?
I was the first one opposed, yes.
We thought so. So 7 opposed, I'm opposed, defeated. So back to the main motion, the board endorses the legislative reform initiative. Call question, is anyone opposed? Carried.
I'm opposed. I'm opposed.
Okay, thank you.
Do I get to speak on the motion, please?
Go ahead.
No.
No, it's already passed.
No, the deferral was, then it goes back to the other one, and there was no opportunity to speak to it. And I had to speak up even to have my vote in opposition recorded. And that the idea is you may be in a hurry, but this is an important step. And I don't see any of the materials in our report or in the correspondence. Yeah, hell with it. I'm opposed.
Thank you. The vote's already been carried. Thank you. Item 2, vaccination passports. Motion receive.
Move receipt.
Director
Second,
Wally,
Mogul.
Director Anderson, I believe. Any discussion? I see 3 hands up that have been up for a few minutes, so did Director Wally or Director Anderson, did you want to speak?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't want to get into this a whole bunch, but I do think we need to be really careful when we go forward and conduct our business to not be exclusionary or create a 2-tiered class system. I was one of the first people to get vaccinated. I'd encourage others to do so, but many aren't for all kinds of reasons that we can dispute or otherwise. But it's really critical that our business continue to be accessible to all. And I'll leave it at that for time, but I could go on. Thank you.
Director Abram, do you have something?
No, that was a previous hand.
Okay, thank you. Director Lee, did you have something? Or is that previous hand?
Oh, no, that's previous, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Call question on receipt. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item 3, Community Works Fund gas tax. Motion to receive the report, or the correspondence, sorry.
Move receipt.
Wally and Moglove. Any discussion? Director Abram?
Yes. Just real quick, can we get a breakdown from staff at a future date regarding the distribution of this money between areas?
Yeah, it'll be in the financial plan reports coming up next month.
Not before.
Well, it's
We
next
don't-
month. We don't have a meeting till next month anyway, so.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? I'll call question on receipt. Anyone opposed? Carried. Members' reports. Code Red for climate change. Motion to receive the report from Director Abram.
Move
Receipt.
Director Lee and Director Abram. Anything to add? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? See none, carried. Item 2, a Marine Plan Partnership newsletter. Motion received from Director Abram. Director Abram, second by.
So moved.
Need a seconder, please.
Wally.
Second.
Wally, thank you. Any discussion?
If I may, real quickly, the reason I provided this particular one is because something that a lot of directors talk about is engagement in these processes, and this totally outlines the engagement process from here forward. So I think everybody should have a read of it.
Thank you. I'll call question on receipt. Anyone opposed? Carried. Management report, no new business, no addendum. Closed item, report from the CEO.
Move receipt of the closed report from the CAO.
Director Lee, seconder.
Second,
Evans. Call question on report. Anyone opposed? Carried. And item B, the closed meeting be held immediately following terminations for subsections 91, C, E, F, G, and O, and 92B of the community charter.
So moved.
Lee, second.
Wally.
Wally, any discussion? Call questions. Anyone opposed? Carried. Motion to terminate.
Move termination.
Wally,
Second.
Second.
Director Lee, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.